is perfect. Thank you. The second topic, after learning about our regional partnership for the West, is what is the Jerusalem Municipality doing today in order to help and promote environment? So that's a humongous question. So we're going to take it just a few updates and a few interesting things going on today in the municipality. And I'll say that piece after Naomi speaks. So that's my intro. I think we can jump right in, unless somebody has a question already.
Do we allow questions before we begin? We can. We can.
It's a nice group.
Adele, okay. Can you send me the link to Daron's email so I can have it on the big screen and see everybody? Oh. The one at the NCARM MD, yeah?
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I sent the wrong link because we had the wrong link. Okay. Fine. So anyway, we're talking about, Batel said partnership to the West. We're talking about, I think, one of the most significant areas of work that the Jerusalem Green Fund is involved in at the moment. It has been involved in for the last few years. And in fact, my personal involvement with it goes back much further. We're talking about looking beyond a city to its region and talking about the need to coordinate efforts among the different entities in the region to take a shared part in conserving their ecological assets, their water assets, their food assets, all the things that help keep us alive and sustain us. And some people call it an urban biosphere. We call it a regional partnership. And I'll tell you how it came about. It began, the thinking about it, when I was deputy mayor. I went to all kinds of conferences of cities as the city of Jerusalem, conferences dealing with issues of sustainability in cities. And I heard various lectures and presentations, and I became deeply impressed by work that was developed in Columbia University in the turn of the millennium, saying that, in fact, the concept that had been known as a biosphere region, most of you heard of biosphere regions? It's a concept that came in the 60s and 70s of the last century, a concept whereby it was recognized that a certain area, usually a largish area, had an awful lot of important ecological values and should be conserved, and would there be declared as a biosphere. But you could say, so why wouldn't it be made into a nature reserve? And the answer to that is that a nature reserve usually doesn't have people in it. It has animals and it has flora and fauna, but people, if it has people, they could be a few natives living on local hunting or whatever, but it wouldn't have massive civilization. And these biospheres that began to be developed around the world would have would border on areas with more people in them, and there would be a kind of buffer zone between them and the places where all the people were, so that, God forbid, the people should not contaminate the biosphere, even though the biosphere was allowed to have people in it as opposed to a nature reserve. But what Columbia University began looking at the beginning of this millennium was the fact that, in fact, cities are becoming more and more important in the world. And in fact, we now know that by the end of this century, 90% of the world will be living in cities. And this is particularly significant because at the beginning of the 20th century, only 12% of the world were living in cities. If you look at that shift from 12% to 90%, you might think that even though there are a lot of very dramatic things going on in the world, that is perhaps one of the more dramatic things that we should be taking note of. And in fact, in our very little country, Israel, 93% of us are already living in cities. So we're sort of ahead of the world trend. We're one of the most crowded countries in the world. Our cities we're very urban. and we have very little precious open space between the cities, and we have to conserve it. So one of the things we have to think about as a country is the interface between the cities and the urban areas beyond them. It's known in the professional jargon, they call it the urban-rural linkage. How does a city come to an end and become a rural area and not impinge on it, encroach on it, take away its assets? And how does the city understand that those assets, those rural assets beyond its boundaries, are very, very important for it? They are a source of sustaining the people in the city, just as the people living in the rural areas beyond actually depend on the city for all their services. So there is a linkage between the urban and rural areas that has to be respected. So initially, at that point, I tried taking the approach that Jerusalem would be a very, very good candidate, for an urban biosphere, because we have the most fascinating rural areas around us. We have, I don't know whether you're aware, you can see it particularly clearly if you go to Mount Scopus. If you go to Mount Scopus and you go to the university campus and you stand at the observation point and you look out to the east, you see desert. If you look to the west, you see green areas. And that is because the city of Jerusalem, everyone talks about a united or a divided city. The real division of the city is a morphological division, which divides it into two watersheds. And the eastern watershed is a desert watershed that goes down to the Dead Sea, and the western watershed goes down to the Mediterranean. Therefore, if you are a drop of rain and you are falling from the sky, you have to think very quickly, am I going to drop down into the Dead Sea, or am I going to flow out into the Mediterranean? This is a very, very important decision. I'm not sure drops of rain actually conduct that thought process, but initially, I thought we could take the whole city of Jerusalem and the desert and the green area around it, disregard all the lines on the map, the blue line of the city, the green line of the ceasefire in 1948, the red lines, the security boundaries, and just say, let's look at the whole area ecologically and disregard our geopolitical and municipal boundaries. It didn't actually happen and it didn't work, but there was a very positive development in 2017. We were already the Jerusalem Green Fund then, and we conducted a workshop to see how we could move this thinking forward. There were a few people who were getting together, professionals, some people from the municipality, some people from here, some people from JNF, Society for the Protection of Nature, and we would meet every month or so and discuss. One of our board members, together with myself, Ehud Ziv, we were very, very consistent, reached an interesting decision. Let's think like that drop of rain. Let's take that one of the morphological halves of the city, the Western River Basin, not look at municipal boundaries, and say we're going to treat that area as a regional partnership. And I'm going to show you the map of that region because I think it gives a, can you see this map?
No.
You should be able to see a map.
No. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We see it.
You see a map. Now I'm going to explain this map because it may look confusing to you. See this yellow line?
Yes.
Yes.
This yellow line is the boundary of our regional partnership. Do you see these funny patches?
Yes.
Just a moment. I'm going to move you all over to the left so I can see the boundary. If you see all these colored patches, these are the community councils of Jerusalem. This is the city of Jerusalem. All these colored patches up here to Ramot and down here to Kiryat Yovel and Chomat Shlomo and all of those. This part that you see on the right, they're also neighborhoods of Jerusalem, but they're part of the eastern watershed. So they're not in, they're out. We decided to take a watershed approach, which is very much being done throughout the world, and to include all the parts of Jerusalem that are in it, which is it's more than 2/3 of the city, I think. But we go to the west as far as this yellow line that you see here, which is just before we get to Beit Shemesh. So once you get out of the city of Jerusalem, you're in a local regional authority, Matei Yehuda. They're one of the largest ones in the country. They go all the way, they go much further down. They go on after Beit Shemesh, but we decided to stop at Beit Shemesh for the beginning because Beit Shemesh is not in the club of this partnership at the moment. I hope they will be in the future. This is an expanding concept, because remember, our drop of rain, once it's fallen here, say in the middle of Jerusalem in one of these neighborhoods, it's got to find its way all the way down beyond that yellow line and try and get to the Mediterranean, if it can. Or what we would prefer it to do is to be absorbed in the soil. And that's for a very important reason, which is that every drop of rain that we can retain and absorb helps replenish our aquifer and our underwater supply, which is drying up and getting saltier by the year. And that is a serious risk of the country, even though we now have adequate desalinated water. Our aquifer should be treated as a very precious resource that we have to replenish. So if you see this netting, do you see this netting all on this map?
Yes.
The netting is the watershed. The netting is the Sorek watershed, the Sorek River basin that goes down to the Mediterranean, and it actually goes beyond the yellow line. But we did say that the security barrier, we would not effectively be able to work beyond it, and we would limit ourselves to that barrier. And except in one place, which is down at the bottom, the village of Walajeh. I'm trying to find it. Yeah, the village of Walajeh, which is half in and half out, and asked to join the Biosphere, and we were very happy to have them because they live in a very appropriate way for the Biosphere thinking. So who do we have in our partnership? We have the city of Jerusalem. We have the regional council of Matei Yehuda. We have Mevaseret. We have Abu Ghosh. We have Tsur Hadassah, which has just been made a local council in its own right, and Telstone, which is a small city council that is asking to become a city and to expand. And all of these are the municipal partners. So now I'm going to go and show you, I think that gives you a picture of the area. I don't know whether you've heard a lot about the efforts and campaigns to protect the Jerusalem hills. I imagine most of you know a little bit of something about that. It's one of the ongoing things because there has been a tendency in the city of Jerusalem, in order to help the city expand and be able to contain the number of residents that want to live in it, to build out. Many cities in the world have done this. I think one of the most severe examples of urban failure has been Los Angeles, which went out and out and out to more and more suburbs and came to urban grief because there was a disconnect between the suburbs. There was a massive web of highways, sometimes one on top of the other, and traffic zooming around from one place to another. Not a feeling of urban cohesion within the city. And many cities in the world have come to understand that the way to have good urban living is to build in and not out, and to protect the green areas and the ecological resources, both within the city and also by building in to protect what is beyond the city boundaries. In our case, to the west in the Sorek Basin and all around, it's the Jerusalem Hills. The Jerusalem Hills are a most important asset for the country from the point of view of wildlife, water sources, also a place to go and have a hike and relaxation from all the tensions that we're all going through. They're very, very important. And so we have been having these discussions, I would say, for, well, they got going very seriously in the Western Partnership, as Batel said at the beginning, in 2017. In 2020, we had a very serious conference. I'll stop sharing for a minute. A very serious conference just before the beginning of Corona, a serious conference at the Hebrew University. It was hosted by the Geography and Environment departments, where we took a step forward. The Ministry of Housing and Construction asked to join us. The Ministry of Environment asked to join us. Official professionals from the Jerusalem Municipality became part of the team, and we began meeting more regularly and continued to grow. But what's happened recently has been really exciting, and that's why we thought it was the moment to share it with you and tell you what's going on, because in fact, it sounds like a very abstract concept, a regional partnership, but it's much more than that. It's a serious partnership undertaken willingly by the municipal and other entities in the region. The other entities, for instance, are the Nature and Parks Authority. They own a lot of the land in the region. There's JNF that is responsible for all the forest land. There are all the communities, urban communities and rural communities, many of which are working together to protect their local assets. So we have a set of principles that has been adopted by all these entities. And at the end of 2023, we were 3 months into the war. The situation was such that we had to decide, shall we hold this conference or shall we not hold this conference? And we made the decision to hold it. It was held in the Botanical Gardens at the end of December 2023. And there were lectures given at this conference by the head of the urban planning department in the Jerusalem Municipality, the city engineer of Matei Yehuda, official representatives of all these entities, but also the young people who are fighting to save the Jerusalem Hills, who are usually fighting the municipality to prevent plans being implemented, and they gave lectures too. And I realized how successful we had been that day when in the middle of the day, the head of the Ministry of Building and Housing for the Jerusalem district came up to me and said, why didn't you ask me to give a lecture at this conference?
Yeah.
And I realized that, and then he said, and what I'm deeply impressed with is that you have the people who are fighting for something and against something and are in something and out of something. They're all together in the room. They're all talking to each other politely. And I said to him, the reason for that is that no one's forcing them to be there. They are choosing to be there, as opposed to many of the structures that are thrust upon us. The special thing about a biosphere partnership is that the members who participate in it, I remember SP&I gave a wonderful lecture at that conference, also on the importance. For instance, one of the assets in the city is our Gazelle Valley. You're familiar with the Gazelle Valley Park? It was my privilege to lead the campaign to protect it originally, but when we ran that campaign, we never realized what a role it was going to be playing in the biosphere, and the fact that it's become what they call an urban kidney. Sounds we know what an urban lung is. An urban lung is when you have a green area that you can helps you to breathe. An urban kidney helps manage the water system of the city. And in fact, the Gazelle Valley today is within the Sorek Basin, so it's very much an urban part of this urban rural biosphere. And it actually prevents flooding in all the areas around it. And it takes in and helps filter through to the aquifer about a quarter of the city's rainfall, which is incredibly important. And no one had realized, and it's won international prizes because of that. And we need gazelle valleys all over this urban biosphere. It's one of the things that we have to develop and do. So the wonderful thing is that these authorities are choosing to come together, choosing to work together. And at that conference, I was able to say at the end of the day with the closing session, look, guys, can I now say, do I have everyone's permission to say that we are now an urban biosphere partnership in process of establishment? We've moved up one rung of the ladder. We're not yet an urban biosphere partnership, but we are now about to be established as one. And everyone clapped hands and everyone said, oh yes, that's what we all want. And we're in the middle of a war, so it's quite actually a peculiar feeling to be talking about such things when we're at war. But on the other hand, I do believe that that's exactly what we have to do. We have to go on doing these things, even while this war is still going on, and make progress and show that we can do so. So the next step was, after the end of 2023, to get all the partners together and say, well, what are we going to do? So they said, we need what's called in Hebrew a tzevet hakama. We need a team that's going to be responsible for leading this process of formally establishing the partnership. And several people volunteered for that team. And that team has been meeting every 2 weeks since last December. And the regular team, which is now 50 or 60 people, meets once every 6 weeks or so and discusses various issues that are regional and not just part of one municipality. And we formulated various documents, one of which I'm going to share with you now. It's in Hebrew, so I'll explain it. Just a second. This is the document of principles that we put together and had produced by Timna, who can't be with us this evening. She coordinates this whole initiative. If you see, it says in Hebrew, Merchab Biospheri Ba'agan HaSorek HaElyon Mismach Ekonot, the Biosphere region in the upper Sorek Basin, a document of principles. And here you see this lovely background. You see the city and you see the country and you see that they're next to each other and they're interwoven and they have to exist together. And why do we need it? I believe I have explained some of that. We need to work together. We need to protect. Remember, in a region, a metropolitan region like Jerusalem, all the different layers of infrastructure cover everyone. I'll give an example. If you're living in Mevaseret and you need to go to hospital, you'll be going to hospital in Jerusalem. If you want to go to a show or to the theater, you'll probably come to Jerusalem. And you'll find that all the infrastructure of tourism, electricity, gas, it all covers the whole region. What had happened in the past with ecological assets was that they were always what was left over. They were what was left over after we built whatever we built, and the need to recognize their status as a proper, respectable layer of infrastructure that is to be integrated, which is to be respected and not just treated as leftovers, is one of the important principles here. So this partnership will deal with economic development, which is sustainable, cultural, ecological, encourage innovation, and encourage a livelihood in the whole region from what we're calling sustainable pursuits, such as growing food, tourism, hospitality, and of course, protecting nature. Nature in itself can become a destination for tourism, and that's one of the things that we're trying to promote. We want to do research. We want to learn more about it. We want to learn why it's important to preserve all these assets, and we want to preserve the cultural heritage, built natural heritage of all the communities in the region. There are many communities. It's a very diverse region. We have all these things to bring together. All the sites that are functioning within the area. For instance, the zoo. The zoo is an integral member of this partnership. It's a very important part of the Sorek Basin, just like the Gazelle Valley. We have community sites, by the way, that we, the Jerusalem Green Fund, are working with in Kiryat Yovel, in Kiryat Menachem, in Momema. We're trying to protect them and help them preserve their assets. Civil society organizations, we're one of them. We're the conveners, but there are many other civil society organizations involved. Different communities, settlements, neighborhoods. The neighborhood councils are signing on as members. By the way, we already have signatories. We have an official document for signing on to the urban biosphere, and Mate Yehuda signed. And Ganim, which is Kiryat Menachem, Ir Ganim, and Givat Masua, they've signed on. We're on our way to the mayor of Jerusalem to have him sign on. We're on our way to Abu Ghosh, which is about to sign on. We're at a very critical stage, and I think within another month or two, we'll be an official urban biosphere, and we will declare ourselves as such. So the local authorities and regional authorities, government authorities, we have government ministries and bodies like the JNF, the Nature and Parks Authority, that actually own and steward land within the region, and economic bodies like Chevrat Mekorot, the water company, the sewage company, all functioning in this area. They're all part of this circle. And of course, academic institutions and research institutions. So what does an urban biosphere partnership do? It willingly, not because we're forced to, choose to sit together and promote strategy and policy throughout the region. We manage the region and its assets. For instance, ecological corridors where wildlife passes through, they don't stop at a municipal boundary. So it's very good that we look at it all together. We're supposed to try and manage, and we're already trying our hand at this, and we're being asked to try our hand to resolve conflicts within the region. We encourage different activities of all the members to advance our common goals. And we encourage discussion and interaction among the different organizations and entities that are members. Research, adaptive management for climate change, all those things, but doing it together, not just the city of Jerusalem, not just Mebaseret, not just Mate Yehuda, but a joint management team. And that we will be appointing very shortly a public council where all the bodies that have signed on will be members. There will be a Tzevet Meta'em, a coordinating body of about 20 members. Then there will be a smaller management body. If you see number 3, Gorem Mechanes, the convening entity, that's us, the Jerusalem Green Fund. This would not be happening were it not for us. It's not that we have a greater voice in saying what happens, but we make things happen. That's really our function in all the things that we do in and around the city. And subcommittees on the issue of education, research, resource management and resource development. This is just showing, I'm going to be very, and this is the map. And this is how to get in touch. So I'm going to unshare. I'm going to basically stop because I've been talking for a long time. I think I've been talking for too long, but there may be questions and you may be curious. You may think this is important. You may think this is all a lot of nonsense. I'd be interested to hear what you think. Are there questions or comments?
Naomi, hi. First of all, it's a monumental job of coordinating many different bodies with different aims, some of which conflict, but overall more or less pointed in the same direction. So Yasher Kochech that you've gotten this far with it. I do have a question. I've been reading that the Municipal Planning Committee is looking forward to the construction of up to 500 residential skyscrapers inside Jerusalem to absorb the influx of Olim who are expected to arrive in the next decade or decade and a half. That certainly qualifies as building in, not building out. But my question is, does any of your planning accommodate this, and how do they deal with issues like stress on urban environment, need for more infrastructure, all the issues that go along with the huge increase in building and population?
Well, you've hit the hammer on the nail. This is Jerusalem's big dilemma, because if you fight to protect the Jerusalem hills, then where are you going to build? And the great fear, my great fear, is that if we don't build in appropriately, we may end up with a new set of towers that become slums because we can't maintain them as we should. And one of the avenues that our urban lobby is examining is how to make sure that when these towers are built, they have sufficient funds to maintain them. Each one has an accompanying fund that looks after all the issues of the building, and that the sufficient infrastructure is provided. All the children in that building, will they have schools to go to, kindergartens to go to, and will there be attractive places for them to go and spend their time? For instance, I'll give you an example. The Gazelle Valley is an excellent example of a trigger for urban renewal. And the towers that are going up around there, the notice is up, say, buy an apartment by the Gazelle Valley. You could call it the Central Park effect. But if you provide the necessary services, because the basic thing that we need here is to build apartments that people want to live in. It's not a question of counting towers or counting housing units. It's a question of having an attractive urban environment. And by protecting the natural resources, the parks, keeping our city clean, keeping the air clean, having a good transport system, bike system, pedestrian system, then we make our neighborhoods and good schools. We make our neighborhoods attractive for the kind of population that we would like to want to move into the city. We need young people who are going to be able to have both parents earning and both parents contributing to the economy of the city. These are the challenges of the city of Jerusalem and many big cities in the world, but I think we're an extreme case.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments? Yes, Rochelle.
I'm very concerned about the same issue, and I understand the dilemma and the challenge, but I'm also very concerned that we will not look like Jerusalem at all in 10 years. Because a lot of the older housing and the more characteristic houses are being demolished. That whole area around the Tachana Merkazi, for instance, I mean, maybe it's necessary. Are there any kind of midway plans that we can build a lot of buildings, but they don't all necessarily have to be 20 and 30 stories tall? I mean, it just seems to me and when you visit other cities, you get out of the train station, you know where you are. And my fear is you're going to get out of this train station here, and there's going to be nothing distinctive practically left of Jerusalem. So how do we balance that?
It's very, very hard, but I think you'll find there is a much stronger conservation department now in the municipality. A very good person has been put in charge. In fact, if you look at the central bus station and the train station, there are some sections of old buildings that are being conserved and restored in the middle of all the new buildings. That's what's done in modern cities. There are whole areas of historic neighborhoods where there are serious limitations on how much you can build. And they may not be enough, and nothing is perfect. And I'm not the voice of the municipality these days. I'm fighting the municipality on many issues, and I agree with you. We have to try and achieve an urban fabric. There are some say that we should have no more than 8 or 9 stories high, and it doesn't matter if there's no space between the buildings, but we need to build densely in that way and not very tall towers. But I will share with you, I live in Kiryat Moshe, and just opposite my house, there is a very tall tower. And there's another very tall tower being built at the end of the street opposite me. And I walk past that tower every day to go to the light rail, and it doesn't annoy me. Now, that you may think this sounds childish, but there are some places in the city where I walk past towers. For instance, in Kiryat Yovel, there are some terribly ugly towers behind what used to be called the monster, but the real monster is what's been built behind the monster. I think the monster should be upgraded and no longer called a monster, but there's something good about the tower that was built next to my house because it sort of sits well on the ground. It combines with, it fits in the neighborhood. It doesn't upset people. And also it's fully populated. So all the apartments have been sold, which means in that space, we are doing what we need to do. We're selling housing units to people, but of course it's prime location. It's just by the light rail. It's just by the interurban rail. It's just by the bus station. So that's what I mean by providing the kind of facilities and infrastructure that housing needs, but it's a real challenge. Nothing is simple. And we have to, and that's why we're all engaging. That's why we're stakeholders, friends. We want to take an active role and not just say yes to whatever the city does. Otherwise,
and I worry that the buildings being built, many of them are going to be bought up by people who live here only part of the year, or people of means and not by working families. I don't know that we're doing enough for working.
I think you're
Not just
quite right.
families, but people in the middle of their lives, you know.
Is this something we, the Jerusalem Green Fund, we can be involved in? If we look at the goals of our organization, it's to promote sustainable economic, social, and environmental development. We didn't develop it. We are not limited to green. We can clearly do whatever we want for our city. And you, the stakeholders, when it comes to our annual general meeting, that's the time to come and say, if you think we should be going in different directions and doing different things, because perhaps we should, and perhaps we could. Certainly,
I think we could, no?
I think, friends, I'm going to tell you something. We now have about 140 stakeholders. I keep trying to count us all, but it's very difficult. And Batel is trying to help me with it all the time. But I would like us to have 1,000 stakeholders. I don't think it's an impossible goal. If every stakeholder brought in two new stakeholders, we would double and triple our numbers. And I think that we're going to be doing something. One of our board members, Jeff Rothenberg, is here with us this evening, and he's guiding us towards an evening that we hope to be putting on round about Tu B'Shvat, when we're going to be honoring our stakeholders and encouraging our stakeholders to bring new friends in and have some kind of a gala, some kind of an event when we try and double our numbers or increase our numbers and strengthen the organization, because the more we have, the more we can do. We don't need millions. We need a little bit more than we've got to be completely independent as an organization. Jerusalemites doing what needs to be done for Jerusalem. I think it's a wonderful way of doing things. We're a cooperative philanthropy. Just a minute, Shoshana was raising her hand. Shoshana?
Yes, I'm curious. I'm in one of these areas that the municipality has rezoned everything. what's happening with Matsala? Are they involved in putting, because they do a lot with roofs and gardens and all that stuff. I saw none of that in that plan.
Well, this is a funny thing. Muslala have taken, they themselves are on a roof in the cloud building, and they took up the issue of what could be done with roofs in Jerusalem, taking into account that all around the Mediterranean basin, if you look in Greece and Malta, in roofs are used. They're very, very important. We began calling roofs the fifth dimension. Now, we, the Jerusalem Green Fund, aren't dealing with it. They have a whole roof organization, and we're encouraging them, and they're part of the lobby. And the city is supporting them. The city has even funded some of their activities. Is that getting into the urban planning? One of our jobs is to get the city not only to talk about what it thinks it ought to be doing, but to make it actually do it. And this doesn't always happen in the way we would like. And you're probably right. And there should be voices of residents and hundreds of stakeholders in the neighborhood who should go to all the planning meetings and say, why aren't we doing something with our roofs? Why aren't all these buildings independent energetically? We should have what's it called? Photovoltaic cells on all the walls of all the buildings. We should be building LEED platinum. We should do all these things, and they could be done, and they should be done. And I sincerely hope they will be done in the future. They're being done more. By the way, the National Library, we had a tour there in our Green Inside and Out festival, is green inside and out. It's a truly green building with LEED platinum.
A LEED building.
It's really wonderful. I hope you've all been there, because if you haven't, you should. Yeah. Maybe we'll arrange another tour, another green tour of it. A really wonderful experience. I'm sorry, I'm taking up all the time and it's not right.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We have about 10 minutes before I wrap it up anyway. Just want to ask if there are any more questions. I do want to more or less give myself like 5 to 7 minutes on my topic.
So start your minutes now.
Jeff, you want to say something?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think one of the things that is becoming more and more, at least in the academic world, an issue is that, in fact, cities that ignore the health implications of building these crowded, high ceilings, whatever you want to call them, buildings without looking at the health impact of the residents are going to pay a big price. So urbanization has to be in some way connected to all the chronic diseases that we know, including such things as high blood pressure. So I think that's an area that is becoming more and more centrally discussed, at least at the European level, which is where I encountered more than anything else. And I really think that area is somewhat in the agenda of the Jerusalem Municipality, but not in a serious way. And I think healthy cities and the goals of healthy cities should be part of our goal here.
I think you're quite right, Hariklia. And the trouble is, the Jerusalem Municipality is a member of the Healthy City Network.
I know.
And it's doing all the things it's supposed to do. But does that mean we're a healthy city? No.
No, and they're not doing everything that they can say. They talk about it, but that's not the same thing as doing it. And I think that what we have that is sort of unique in a sense is that we can talk about a healthy city as part of planning the healthy city, because it's like, for example, the whole issue of how high a building can be, or what do you do with a roof, or what do you do with energy alternatives, and all that sort of stuff. We can develop guidelines that are based on European level or actually international at this point, that are not considered now at all. And I really think that that's something that I don't see. You know, I'm a member of at the European level of the Healthy Cities, and I really don't see that here. But maybe I'm wrong because I have been out of the working for at least a year and a half now, been sick. But I think that's an area that the Green Fund of Jerusalem should be part of.
I
That's
think
all I
you're
wanted
quite
to
right,
say.
and we have to think of ways of doing it. And again, we would need a bit of resources to do that, and
Of
maybe,
course,
but
but
we
I
have to
think
think
that
about it.
given Jerusalem, what it means from the cultural and world perception, I think we can do fundraising, including European funding, for what we can do to improve that, growing the city, but taking into consideration the health needs of the population. That's
Very
just a
true.
suggestion that I have crossed many times through the Healthy Cities European group. So I think we should not forget that, because many of the issues that we are discussing at the community level would be addressed through that initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rochelle?
Somebody brought to my attention recently, these are like unintended consequences of building in. A lot of us use solar panels on our roofs for our hot water, etc. When you put a large building next to smaller buildings, it will block the sun.
Exactly.
Yeah, and those are the things that I fear the most. That after, oh yes, we provided a lot of housing, but I hope those things, and we have to add them to our lists as we appeal.
Yeah, that's it.
Our list never gets shorter, Rochelle. It always
Only
gets longer. But we have to keep at it, don't we?
Yeah.
Yep, you're right. You're saying it the right way. I agree.
Jeff, did you have something?
I wanted to return to the biosphere for a second.
Okay.
And ask about the highest priority projects you see going forward.
Well, I tell you, one of the things that has happened in Jerusalem was that in 2005, an urban nature survey was initiated by SPNI. I actually led that at the time. Now we're talking about looking at the whole region and what we're doing already, and it's our first priority, is an ecological services survey to see what are the important resources in the region so that we can know where we really mustn't build. We can't block the water flow, we can't block the ecological corridors, and we can know what needs to be protected. When you have that knowledge, it's easier to take a stand for those resources. And also you could, with an open heart, encourage development, hopefully not too tall and not too unsustainable in the places where you can build. There's a new person in charge of the planning department in the municipality. We're going to have a meeting with her. And I'm interested to hear how she feels about this. She was city engineer in Beit Shemesh. I don't think they're building so tall in Beit Shemesh, but I may be wrong. Not so familiar with Beit Shemesh. I've always seen it as out of bounds somehow.
They're pretty big, actually, but never mind.
That's our first priority, and then other things will follow.
You're right. I agree.
Okay, I'm gonna take the exact last 7 minutes. Well, let's see if I can live to my own challenge. 7 minutes on 7 neighborhoods or so. So one of the questions that was asked for the steering committee, I should say, of this group, of the English focus group, there is a steering committee that suggests topics and helps set the date and things like that. So somebody there asked, what is the municipality doing right now for the environment for us right now? So it's a very big question. I'm not going to answer the whole of it, but let's say, what do I mean by 7 neighborhoods? There are a little bit more than 7, but there are 7 plus what we call Rakazei Teva Ironi. So the municipality, I'm going to explain what that is. municipality has a department of social how do I say that? Of social
Social sustainability.
sustainability, right? I was gonna say social in general, and then a subset of social sustainability, which means that they have several staff members that coordinate people on the ground in 7 different neighborhoods to do work one-on-one with residents to make each of these neighborhoods or clusters of neighborhoods more sustainable. Okay, so I was just going to list them because I made a quick list so I wouldn't forget. Without getting into too much detail, who's officially employed with the area municipality, who isn't, is less sort of important, but they, after actually pat ourselves on the back a bit, it was sort of like an invention of the JGF, and I was the first person to sit in this position, specifically actually in the Haredi neighborhood. So all of you know that I sit in Romema and have a Center for Sustainability in Romema and do these sorts of coordinating of activities for the neighborhood for the benefit of people, of the residents. And we've been pressuring this municipality for a very long time, for years, to do it again and to do it in other neighborhoods. So the other neighborhoods that right now have a person who's in charge of urban nature, because maybe there are urban nature sites there, are the following. There are people in Har Homa or Chomat Shmuel, Yuvalim, right, the greater Kiryat Yovel area, Ganim, the greater Kiryat Menachem, and that person is Maya. Some of you know her. She is funded half by the municipality and half by the Jerusalem Green Fund, so she's really a total shared staff member. There's a woman in Ramot. Actually, we're still looking to fill that position. She just finished her position, already knows who wants to fill a position in Ramot. Talpiot Mizrach, Armona Nativ area, and Givat Ze'ev, all the way in the north of the city. Givat Sarfati, also in the north of the city, and also in Beit HaKerem. So that is the complete list. Go back to here. They are all doing similar work to either preserve a particular urban nature site that Naomi was referring to before, about there are several nature sites around the entire city that we all have to preserve in different ways. So either they're working on the nature site in their neighborhood, or they're generally speaking promoting sustainable programming, sustainable living in those neighborhoods. So this is something that, you know, the area has been working on and improving. And each of us, we get together every so often and to learn from each other as coordinators in different neighborhoods and challenges and what works, what doesn't work, what are we focusing on, things like that. And each person is amazing. Each person is doing something really so important in their own neighborhood, in their own way. Each speaking to their subpopulations appropriately, what speaks to them, what drives them and moves them in every neighborhood. And it's really a breath of fresh air as somebody who's been in this position for a while and watching it grow and seeing more and more staff members be a part of it. And then also being in touch with different residents from these different neighborhoods and hearing their personal feedback. You know, somebody, I move around a lot of the city and I meet a lot of people and I hear it, especially from the people who have interaction with these coordinators. It's something significant, and people are really appreciative of their work. So I'll just give, let's see, I have one more minute. So one example that I just had a Tsur in Armona Nativ with their Rakaz, and he took us to several different sites around their neighborhood that have been initiated by residents. Residents came to him saying, "Yeah, you're in charge of environment. Let's do something." And they've created really amazing things there, such as, unfortunately, right, soldiers have fallen in the war, and a lot of people really wanted to do programs in order to memorialize them. things that express longevity and legacy. And so an entire field of grapes was planted in the name of one of these soldiers. All different kinds of grapes to make wine, and a pergola was built right next to it. Really beautiful. It was totally built by residents and the friends of this fallen soldier, under the tutelage and the guidance of this Rakaz. And it's really, really moving and amazing. And they're doing something that's also in a space that wasn't being used. It was a space that was just sitting there kind of collecting garbage. So it's really a classic move. Taking a place that is not being utilized, we can do something with it that's beneficial, and what more appropriate than in these days do something like that. So there's just one example, and I've taken 7 minutes. I want to leave the last few minutes if somebody wants to ask a particular question about that, or if you live
Or about
in
anything.
know your coordinator, I could tell you who it is if there is one.
But I just want to add to your minute, Batel, the fact that 1.5 out of those 7 people are funded by the Jerusalem Green Fund. And in addition, one of the reasons they're increasing the number of nature coordinators, environment coordinators in the neighborhood is because of the pressure of our lobby. It's one of the things we've been lobbying for. And the lobby is coordinated by the Jerusalem Green Fund, and it has 90 organizations in it, and they're all around the city. So we're sort of out there. And
Of course, you need that. You couldn't otherwise convince people to. you inspire, but also you support. They learn from your experience, and I think it's great. You just
Richard.
Yes.
Jerusalem Green Fund used to be a convener of the coalition by meeting quarterly with the mayor of Jerusalem. What happened with that? We're no longer meeting with the mayor. Was that because of something that happened, or is it just by default?
Well, it stopped during Corona. It stopped during Corona. It went foul during Corona because there was never good reception when he had people in the room and we had people on Zoom, and it never worked properly. We gave up, but in this term of office, we tried to renew it. And I will tell you honestly, Richard, what happened. About 15 of us came to a meeting with the mayor, and we said, thank you for all the good things that he's doing. And then various people representing various issues around the city said things that they thought needed improving. And the mayor got annoyed. The mayor got annoyed. He said, don't you know I'm the greenest mayor in the country? These were his words. He said, aren't you going to give me compliments? You've come here to tell me that things are wrong. He really was a different mayor, completely from the mayor that he was in the first term of office. However, the good news is we have a lot of people on the city council. We have a lot of senior professionals in the municipality with which we can work. And I'm hoping that the mayor is going to sign up for the Biosphere because he's just signed a contract with JNF to look after green spaces in the city, although he's contravening that with some of the plans that are going forward. So nothing's black and nothing's white, but I think we're better off not meeting with him regularly, unless it's a very special occasion like signing for the Biosphere, because he's got himself into a funny place where you can't criticize him, even politely, which is problematic.
Yeah. I want to add one more thing. In addition to having coordinators across the city, another thing that we're doing as the Jerusalem Green Fund to further promote these things, and also, let's say, an evening like this, the English focus group, or other things, and even strengthening that connection with the social sustainability department in the municipality, is that here we have a important woman in the room, Eileen Steinberg, volunteer par excellence, former staff member, has initiated and is coordinating a volunteer center in Beit Levi Eshkol, which is the former residence of Levi Eshkol, but also at the House of the Society of Protection of Nature in Israel in Jerusalem. And we too rent space there. And what we do there is have a place for volunteers to come when it suits them during the week, during office hours, to help us support, coordinate the things that we're doing, the programs that we're doing, depending what they are at that time of year or in the moment. So even though on the screen your name is Daron, your name is Eileen. Hello. And Eileen is coordinating this. I know some of the people in
He's
this room
got a
are.
bigger screen because he's university, so he's got a bigger screen. But in the minutes, would you write the email, the intern's email, so people can contact me? And like Heraclia, I spoke with someone in her home twice. Once she was on her way to giving Thanksgiving dinner, and this afternoon. And I don't know who's answering your phone, but the
My
mail.
husband.
He has a lovely voice. Does he sing? He's like, really has a nice voice. Anyway, Heraclia, we'll be in contact because I know you want to volunteer as well. And we need all the volunteers to help us reach out and expand the organization, which is the goal of the volunteer center. And it's a beautiful building. It's really, really nice.
It's a
Lovely
nice
building.
place to go to.
Yeah.
Elisa?
Yes, I want to ask about something that was addressed in the past. You were trying to stop an incinerator from being built, and I wonder if there's an update about that, because that is the absolute worst way to handle trash.
I agree.
I thought if you ever need to call on me, I had a lot of a big role in stopping a big regional medical waste incinerator from going into the poorest area of the Bronx, not my neighborhood, but not far away. It was an 8-year battle, and they had circumvented all the environmental regulations, and there were some illegal things that were done. And after 8 years, it was built, and people were suffering. But we saw that we had a ceremony where we took the stack down. So yes. So is there an update?
I could say about that. We were in a place before the Hagim, like in a better place. Things looked like they were about to be officially signed. Knesset members were going to officially sign, saying we're not going to build this. Although since then there's been, other than a lot of political turmoil, which is the norm, some things have been less clear, and so we're not as certain anymore. We're doing some deep political work right now to find out what's really going on, because all the residents are still in agreement from across the board, across also the political board, and that whole area pretty agreement against this thing. It's really, really sitting at the moment in the hands of several Knesset members. And so we're trying to put that pressure on right now. So I don't have a particular answer. I wish I did. But if I get real concrete information, I will definitely share it.
Yeah, thank you. Have they been educated about the terrible environmental and health harm?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that now and not in this forum. It's a little bit more complicated than that. It's not
a subject for another time.
It's an important subject,
No,
but I think
don't
that they
mean
are
that.
very well informed.
I mean educating those Knesset members, making them aware of the environmental and health harm of this.
Elisa, please come over here and educate our Knesset members. We really need someone to do that.
Speaking of education, I just want to welcome back Lauren, who is one of my students in the nonprofit management and leadership program from Rothberg, and she's just tuned back. I wrote her this morning from the volunteer center, and here she is tuning in from California. So, and Lauren helped us establish a website for the JGF in America at one point. So welcome back, Lauren. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Wonderful to see you, actually.
Yeah, better than good. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna close the meeting unless there's anything super burning.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to say is thank you very, very much for what you are doing. I mean, it's really amazing the work that you
Okay, so
meaning
next
Batel and
time
Naomi are
we'll
doing.
announce a new topic, and hopefully we'll have even more friends. And
Yossi wants to say something.
No, I just have a question. I can never figure out if the recycle is real. And what's the latest? I mean, thank God for the orange bins. Thank you. I know you guys were instrumental, but what's the real story? Because people ask me.
Can we spend our next meeting on that? The next
Yeah, I
meeting
think
is
so.
going to be on all aspects of garbage, from incineration to composting, because we have news
Okay.
on all fronts.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for all you do.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank you for being a
Amazing.
stakeholder, Yossi, and try and find us more.
Okay. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Both of them.
Bye, friends.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Batel, you'll stay with me a minute? Okay.
Thank you, Chava, for coming.
It was super interesting. I'm glad that I joined. Thank you for
You can
inviting me.
stop the record if you want.
Oh, I can stop the record. Thank you for answering. I always forget.